Elena moved quietly among the polished shelves of the luxury boutique, her fingers gently resting on the soft fabric of elegant scarves and the sleek surfaces of designer handbags. The store buzzed softly around her, a blend of murmured conversations, the occasional clink of glass, and the subtle scent of expensive perfume. She wore a simple blouse and trousers, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, the modest silver cross resting against her collarbone offering her a small measure of comfort amid the noise. As a saleswoman, Elena was accustomed to the muffled judgment of well-dressed customers, some eyeing her modest attire with mild curiosity or unspoken disdain. But today felt different. The new manager, Mark, had arrived only a week ago, and his presence was already felt in the sharp way he inspected everything, including the employees. Mark had a reputation for being exacting, unyielding, and deeply focused on outward appearances. His gaze landed on Elena's cross with sharp disapproval. He strode toward her, his polished shoes clicking authoritatively on the marble floor. "You need to remove that," he said, his voice low but firm enough for those nearby to catch. "It doesn't fit the image we're promoting here." Elena blinked, caught off guard. The cross was part of who she was, a quiet symbol she refused to abandon simply because it wasn't fashionable. She touched it instinctively but held her ground. "It's personal," she replied softly. Mark's eyes narrowed. "I'm telling you, take it off. Or you'll have to leave." The store seemed to hold its breath as Elena's heart pounded quietly beneath her blouse. She knew this was no ordinary demand, and this confrontation was only just beginning. Mark's voice cut through the soft background hum of the boutique like a sharply thrown knife. "I said remove the cross," he repeated, his tone hardening. "This is a luxury store, Elena. We maintain a certain standard here. Personal trinkets don't belong on the floor. They distract the customers." Elena's fingers tightened briefly around the delicate silver chain before she unclasped it slowly, her voice quiet but certain. "Mark, this cross isn't a trinket. It's part of who I am. I've worked here for nearly 3 years, and my customers come back because of how I treat them, not because of what's around my neck." His eyes flashed with impatience and something colder beneath. "That's not the point," he snapped. "I won't tolerate anything that threatens the image. If you won't take it off, security will escort you out." A hush sank over the boutique. Some customers paused their browsing, turning curious gazes toward the confrontation. Other employees shifted uncomfortably, their smiles gone, replaced by a mix of concern and unease. Elena blinked away the sudden sting of heat behind her eyes but remained composed. "I'm not here to cause problems," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, trying for compromise. "If there's an issue with something else." Mark cut her off sharply, stepping closer so his shadow fell over the counter. "There's no room for negotiation. This is a business, not a Sunday service. You have to decide now." The word "now" hung heavily between them, a direct challenge daring her to defy him. Elena glanced fleetingly at her colleagues, some staring with sympathetic eyes, others averting theirs as if watching a sinking ship. As Elena reached instinctively to touch the cross still resting over the neckline of her blouse, she swallowed hard against the sudden wave of humiliation boxing her in. Too many had watched her quietly stand firm while Mark publicly undermined her dignity. On the customer side, a well-dressed woman shifted her weight, eyebrows knitting in discomfort. A young man at the entrance paused, glancing uncertainly at his phone as if wanting to avoid the scene. Mark's voice dropped to a harsh whisper, only for her to hear. "You're making a mistake. You think loyalty matters here? You think customers care about your beliefs? Out here, it's about image and sales. You're out of place." For a moment, Elena felt the warmth of tears rise, a flicker of self-doubt whispering in her mind, maybe he was right. Maybe she was just a simple woman in a place that demanded something she couldn't fully grasp. But the cross was hers, not a prop or an accessory to be tossed aside on command. She stepped back from the counter, slowly turning toward the exit. The soft click of her shoes against the polished marble felt like the slow ticking of a death sentence. She needed air, space to breathe away from the mounting pressure of Mark's eyes burning in her back. But before she could reach the door, Mark was there again. "You're not leaving," he said, blocking her path with a superiority that was difficult to challenge. "You either comply or face the consequences." Her breath caught. The room seemed suddenly smaller, the walls pressing in with whispered judgment from every direction. The customers who had been casually passing through were now witnesses to the unfolding humiliation. Elena began, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "I'm just doing my job." "And I'm your manager," Mark shot back. "Do it my way, or you're gone." Around them, the atmosphere tightened. A few employees shifted, uncertain whether to intervene or keep distance. The store's polished image crackled as the incident spilled beyond a routine customer interaction into a workplace standoff. Elena's mind raced. Should she call a friend for support? Maybe her husband? But pride and exhaustion held her back. She had faced tougher days. She could endure this one too, quietly, patiently. But Mark's challenge wasn't a polite request anymore. It was a command backed by an unspoken threat that could cost her her livelihood. The shop's soft lighting now felt harsh and accusing. For the customers still eyeing the scene, their expressions ranged from awkward sympathy to thinly veiled disdain. Some whispered to one another, the quiet murmur of gossip like a low tide threatening to pull her under. Minutes dragged painfully forward. Elena's heart pounded in time with the muted footsteps of the security guard Mark had silently summoned from the back. His presence loomed near, making the moment feel official and irrevocable. "No," Elena said firmly, catching Mark's gaze with sudden resolve. "I won't take this off." Mark's jaw clenched. "Then please step aside," he ordered the security guard. "Escort her out." The guard hesitated just a fraction, glancing at the delicate woman in front of him who looked nothing like trouble. Elena felt the awkwardness ripple from the guard to the watching staff and customers. Realizing this was no ordinary reprimand but a deliberate public shaming, Elena's skin prickled with shame. Still, she lifted her chin and slowed her steps forward, preparing to face whatever consequences lay ahead. But just as she passed behind the counter and toward the store exit, a middle-aged customer in a tailored suit approached Mark. "Is this really necessary?" the man asked quietly. "She's one of your best salespeople. This seems excessive." Mark flushed and spoke quickly. "Company policy. Image standards." The customer shook his head, then turned to Elena with a small, reassuring smile. "Don't let him shake you. You're good at what you do." That tiny gesture was a flicker of light in what felt like a gathering storm. Elena reached the exit, paused, and glanced back. Every pair of eyes now on her felt like it weighed on her shoulders. She sensed silently the mix of judgment and sympathy swirling like an undercurrent in the polished store environment. As she stepped out into the cooler air of the mall's corridor, she pulled the cross from around her neck and held it for a moment in her palm. The simple silver cross was nothing to most people. But to Elena, it was constant strength. Her thoughts spun with the bitter taste of injustice and the mounting question, what would she do now? The humiliation felt tidal, but deep inside, something tightened, a determination flickering to life. Mark's voice lingered in the back of her mind, sharp and final. She would obey, or she would leave. Elena's eyes darkened with a mixture of fear and resolve. Across the floor, customers resumed their browsing as though nothing had happened. The boutique returned to its calm gloss, but for Elena, nothing would ever be quite the same again. If you were in Elena's shoes, facing public control over your personal expression, would you comply or stand firm? What would you do next? As Elena stood just outside the boutique, the silver cross held tightly in her palm, the air around her seemed heavier than before. The cold mall corridor felt indifferent to the turmoil inside her. Her heart thudded fiercely, a mix of indignation and quiet strength rising within her. She could not let this humiliating moment define her. A sudden idea sparked in her mind. Instead of retreating, perhaps she could turn this confrontation into something else, a challenge, even. Elena took a deep breath, smoothed the folds of her plain blouse, and returned to the store entrance with a steady step. Mark was organizing some brochures near the front counter, brow furrowed as if replaying the recent confrontation. When Elena stepped inside, he immediately looked up, suspicion and annoyance knitting his features. Back so soon? What are you planning now? I want to prove something, Elena said calmly. You say I don't belong here because I wear my cross. Fine. But let's put the focus where it belongs, on my work. She locked eyes with Mark. I'm willing to answer any questions you or the customers have about our products and services. Mark raised an eyebrow, his lip curling with disbelief. You? Go ahead then. Impress me. A hush fell over the boutique. Several customers turned their heads to watch the exchange. Some employees exchanged curious glances. The dynamic had shifted, the tension thickened with anticipation. Elena concentrated. A familiar warmth spread through her as she recalled facts, features, and details that she had mastered over 3 years. She approached a display of luxury watches and began with clarity. This collection features Swiss automatic movements, known for their precision and craftsmanship. The sapphire crystal face offers scratch resistance and a clear view, making the watch practical as well as elegant. A curious customer, a middle-aged woman in a sharp blazer, stepped closer, holding a sleek metal bracelet. Is this adjustable? I have a smaller wrist. Elena smiled gently, absolutely. This model comes with easily removable links, and our technicians can assist in sizing it perfectly for you. Her words carried a subtle authority, not from arrogance but from genuine knowledge. Mark shifted uncomfortably. The customer's eyes brightened, murmurs of approval rippled quietly through the store. Encouraged, Elena moved to a display of premium handbags, continuing her concise explanations. These bags use high-grade leather sourced from Tuscany, tanned naturally to maintain flexibility and durability. Each stitch is carefully sewn to ensure long-lasting wear. A young man, eyeing a black handbag, asked, "Do you have it in other colors?" Elena nodded. Yes, this series comes in deep burgundy and navy blue. I can check our inventory for availability and reserve one for you. The customers grew engaged, asking a variety of questions, and Elena answered with ease and warmth. Her knowledge wasn't rehearsed or forced, it flowed naturally from a deep understanding of the merchandise and a sincere desire to assist. Mark's earlier confidence began to fade, replaced by a tightness in his jaw. He exchanged uneasy glances with a couple of staff members whispering behind the counter. One security guard who had been nearby with folded arms shifted awkwardly, glancing down at his shoes. Minutes passed as Elena continued, showing an ease and grace that contradicted the simple saleswoman image Mark had scoffed at. Then, a challenge came unexpectedly. A customer asked about an intricate feature on a high-end wristwatch, something rarely bought or known by casual shoppers. Elena's expression did not falter. With measured patience and evident expertise, she explained the chronograph's functions in detail, including the tachymeter scale and its real-world uses for timing speed and distance. A hush settled once again as the customers absorbed the explanation. A murmured round of "impressive" and "she really knows her stuff" spread quietly but clearly. Mark's face flushed crimson, and he barely managed to keep a neutral tone as he muttered, "Well, perhaps you know more than I thought." Even the employees, previously divided between discomfort and silent support, now showed visible relief and admiration. A soft smile appeared on the face of Rosa, a fellow saleswoman who had silently cheered Elena during her ordeal. The customers nodded appreciatively, many casting supportive looks in Elena's direction. Finally, Elena concluded her impromptu demonstration. She stood upright, a calm confidence woven through her posture. Mark cleared his throat and addressed the gathered crowd with forced formality. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a reminder that knowledge and dedication are vital, regardless of appearance or accessories. We all strive to maintain the highest standards here. The customers exchanged glances, some with subtle amusement at the manager's slight embarrassment. After the brief presentation, a discreet applause rose from several shoppers, echoing softly in the upscale store. Elena allowed herself a small, private smile. The humiliation she'd felt earlier still lingered, but the seed of respect had been planted. Behind the counter, a younger employee whispered to her friend, "I never thought she'd go off like that. She's incredible." Elena felt something shift, not just in how the others saw her, but within herself. Mark said nothing more about the cross, nor did he press the issue again that day. His demeanor was cooler, more cautious. Later that afternoon, as the store began its quiet descent toward closing time, Elena stood near the entrance, the cross now hanging again around her neck. It felt lighter somehow, as if it had been fortified by her determination. The customers who came in still glanced at her with newfound appreciation, and a few exchanged words with Mark, who seemed less eager to exert his authority. Elena's demonstration had changed the tone of the day, subtly but unmistakably. And in her quiet moments after the store was empty, she contemplated the power within herself, the strength of knowledge, resilience, and the dignity of standing firmly for what she believed. Not all battles are loud, sometimes the most meaningful victories unfold quietly, amid the soft rustle of luxury fabrics and the glint of polished glass. Deep inside her, a small flame burned steadily, ready for whatever came next. Later that evening, Elena sat alone in a quiet corner of a small cafe just a few blocks from the luxury boutique. The day's events played over in her mind, the sharp sting of humiliation tempered by the unexpected victory she had carved out in the store. The silver cross rested once again around her neck, glowing softly under the cafe's warm light. To anyone passing by, she looked like just another customer savoring a late cup of coffee, but there was far more beneath the surface. What few knew was that Elena was no ordinary saleswoman. Beneath the humble uniform and modest demeanor, she was the majority owner of the store chain, the founder's granddaughter and the driving force behind the brand's vision. Elena chose to travel incognito whenever possible, shedding the trappings of corporate power to understand, firsthand, what her stores were truly like on the ground. She wanted genuine experiences, raw insights from her employees and customers, unfiltered by privileged distance or executive filters. Elena's family had built the luxury brand from a small atelier into a renowned empire, blending craftsmanship with timeless elegance. But the company's success had never been the driving passion, it was the people, the stories woven with silk and thread, the hands that shaped each product. Elena's insistence on personal authenticity guided every decision, even if it meant challenging entrenched traditions and outdated rules. Her simple blouse and plain trousers were deliberate choices, a way to connect with the employees she worked alongside, hardworking salespeople tired of being judged by appearances rather than abilities. The cross she wore was a symbol of her own grounding faith, a reminder of humility, resilience, and the kindness she sought to inspire. She remembered the moment when Mark had demanded she remove it, the sharp edge of his arrogance cutting through the easy camaraderie she tried to nurture. His attitude was a reflection of a corporate culture she was determined to reform, one that prioritized image over character, conformity over authenticity. As she sipped her coffee, Elena allowed herself a brief smile. The confrontation had been difficult, but revealing her competence had started a quiet but powerful shift in the store's atmosphere. Her thoughts drifted to the employees, Rosa and the others, who had witnessed the interaction. She hoped her example would remind them that their worth was not measured by superficial standards imposed from above. Elena had always believed that true leadership was about lifting others, not tearing them down. Just then, her phone buzzed softly on the table, a message from her husband, Daniel. They shared a life filled with global travels, philanthropic work, and mutual support for each other's dreams and missions. His message was simple: "How was your day? Proud of you." Elena's heart warmed. Daniel knew her better than anyone, not just as a successful executive but as a woman who valued integrity above all. She texted back, eventful. Challenging but necessary. I feel ready for what's next. Elena closed her eyes briefly, allowing the moment to settle. She was prepared not only to face Mark but to address the deeper issues his behavior represented. The next steps would be deliberate and fair, but firm. Her responsibility as a leader extended beyond profit margins to the very culture that shaped the company. Her modest appearance had concealed her true identity, but that would soon change in a way no one would forget. When Elena returned to the boutique the following morning, the atmosphere was markedly different. Employees whispered among themselves, noticing the subtle change in the air. Elena's presence was no longer a quiet background hum but a ripple stirring new possibilities. Mark greeted her with feigned indifference, but a flicker of apprehension lingered in his eyes. She approached him directly, her voice calm yet unmistakably authoritative. "Mark, we need to talk." They stepped into a private office, the glass walls offering a view of the store's elegant interior but cocooning them in a bubble of urgency. Elena spoke clearly, "I've observed your management style and how it conflicts with the values we uphold. The incident yesterday was unacceptable. Our employees deserve respect and freedom to express their individuality. We will be reviewing your conduct closely." Mark's posture stiffened. "I was only enforcing company policy," he said, trying to hold on to his defensive stance. "Company policy that doesn't allow personal expression?" Elena challenged. "That policy will be re-evaluated immediately." She paused, letting her words settle. "We're not just a brand selling luxury goods, we are a community that supports diversity and dignity. Your behavior risks alienating our staff and customers alike." Mark swallowed hard but said nothing. Elena continued, "You will be temporarily suspended during this review. I expect you to reflect on how your actions align with the values we strive to embody." His eyes lowered, frustration and regret weaving through his expression. Back on the sales floor, Elena addressed the team openly. She shared her vision for a workplace where each person's identity was honored, not hidden or suppressed. Her honesty sparked a revitalization among the staff. Smiles returned, subtle nods of approval, renewed energy in their movements. One by one, employees felt seen and valued, not just as workers, but as individuals. Elena's leadership was no longer a distant figurehead but a living example of empathy and strength. Throughout the day, customers sensed the warmth in the store's atmosphere, lingering longer, asking questions, smiling more freely. Elena caught Rosa's eye during a busy moment and exchanged a knowing look, a silent promise of better days. Later, Elena met with senior executives to initiate comprehensive training programs focused on inclusivity, respect, and authenticity. Change was on the horizon, a movement toward a company culture that celebrated people, not just profits. As evening fell, Elena returned home to Daniel, sharing the day's triumphs and challenges. He offered unwavering support, reminding her that true leadership required courage and compassion. Elena felt a deep gratitude. The journey ahead was far from easy, but with conviction and kindness, she was ready to reshape the world she had inherited. Her modest cross lay softly on her chest, a symbol not of vulnerability but of unwavering belief in the power of dignity and resilience. The store was no longer just a place of luxury, it was a place where everyone could feel respected and valued. And Elena was determined to ensure it stayed that way. The following morning dawned quiet but charged with anticipation. Word had already spread among the boutique's employees about the meeting between Elena and Mark. Some greeted her with tentative smiles, others with outright relief. There was a collective breath held, as if the tension that had plagued the store was about to finally dissolve. Elena arrived early, stepping into the boutique with the grace of someone who both belonged and commanded respect. The silver cross around her neck caught the morning light, a subtle reminder of the principles she upheld: integrity, humility, and courage. Mark was already there when she entered. He stood near the entrance, his usual confident swagger replaced with a stiff posture and furrowed brow. The staff around him avoided eye contact, their previous loyalty now tinged with uncertainty about his position. Elena approached him directly, her tone firm but measured. "Mark, following yesterday's conversation, we've decided to take formal action regarding your conduct." Mark's lips pressed into a thin line. "I understand," he said, voice low. The room seemed to quiet as Elena continued, effective immediately. "You are suspended pending a thorough review. This decision is about ensuring our workplace upholds respect and personal dignity." Mark swallowed, visibly choked by the news, but nodded in acceptance. "I will cooperate fully," he replied, the haughtiness drained from his voice. As Mark left the boutique to gather his belongings, some employees exchanged quiet glances, relief mingled with a touch of vindication. Rosa approached Elena, a new spark of hope brightening her eyes. "Thank you for standing up for us," she said softly. "It feels like a new chapter." Elena offered a warm smile. "You all deserve a place where you can be yourselves, and do your best work without fear." In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the boutique softened noticeably. Elena's quiet but visible presence brought reassurance to the staff. She made a point of listening deeply to their concerns, sharing stories, and encouraging open dialogue. Training sessions were scheduled, not as punitive measures, but as opportunities to foster understanding and growth. Managers and employees alike participated, discovering ways to balance professionalism with individuality. Mark's suspension was a turning point, not just for him but for the entire company. Human Resources began revising dress code policies, ensuring they respected personal expression and cultural values. The message was clear: respect and inclusion were no longer optional. Behind the scenes, Elena also reached out to Mark. A thoughtful letter arrived expressing regret and a willingness to learn. He admitted his narrow view and promised to grow from this experience, a sincere step toward redemption. Meanwhile, Elena's leadership was increasingly admired beyond the boutique. Senior executives took note of the positive shift in employee morale and customer satisfaction. Stories of the boutique's renewed spirit spread through the industry as a model of modern, empathetic retail management. Months later, a small celebratory event was held to honor the employees' resilience and teamwork. Elena stood among her staff, proud but humble, sharing a few words about dignity and respect. Her message resonated deeply with everyone present. She reminded them that every individual's worth was the foundation of the company's success. As the team gathered for a group photo, Rosa whispered, "You changed everything." Elena nodded, feeling a quiet joy swell within her. The journey was far from over, but now they walked it together, with trust and mutual support. In a private moment afterward, Elena revisited the modest silver cross at her collar. It was more than a symbol, it was a reminder of the strength that comes from standing firmly in one's truth, even when faced with opposition. Her own vulnerability had become a source of power, inspiring others to embrace their identities with pride. The boutique was now a place where authenticity was valued, and where respect was given freely, not just expected. As new customers entered the store, greeted by genuine smiles and an atmosphere infused with warmth, Elena felt a deep satisfaction. The luxury wasn't just in the goods sold but in the respect shared among people. Before leaving that evening, Elena recorded a brief message for her social media followers, inviting them to reflect. "What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you stand firm or follow the rules? Share your thoughts in the comments, let's learn from each other." She paused, then added, "If this story moved you, please subscribe and join us for more inspiring tales. See you next time." With that, Elena closed her phone and looked out the window, the city lights twinkling like distant promises. The cross glinted softly at her throat, a quiet emblem of the journey she had walked, and the path she was determined to lead for others. The end was only the beginning.